Hey, you guys, welcome back to Philly Indie with Melissa Chadwick. We're going to have a quick intro today. We got a nice long interview. I'm already set up with Frank Harrer, who we'll be talking to in a little bit. We've had kind of a crazy week. I have been talking so much about everybody else's projects that I decided it's time. Gotta do another one. So I went and signed up for a team challenge in my group. I talk about sometimes AGR up in New York. Every month they have a film challenge. You have basically 3 weeks or so to do your pre-production, your filming, your post-production. So I went and signed us up, and I've been in pre-production trying to find locations for a script I had in my head, and it's been just driving me insane all week. So we're filming next weekend, and a week and a half or so after that, we will have, a couple weeks after that, we'll have the premiere. So I'll let you all know about it if you're interested. You can come and check it out. And next weekend we will probably be bringing you Philly Indie from set. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, stay tuned. Do not go out and film anything just yet. Just stick around, because in a few minutes we'll have Frank Juchniewicz, and he'll be talking to us about what he's got going on. So stand by. Hey, you guys, welcome back to Philly Indie with Melissa Chadwick. We're on episode 6, and we have a special guest today, Frank Juchniewicz. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks for stopping by.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So a lot of people in the area know you as Frank Harrer, which is why I have it listed as this. Of course, you can go visit Frank's website at www.frankharrer.com, but don't go now, because obviously we want to hear what Frank has to say. So, Frank, tell me, when did you get into filmmaking and what prompted the interest?
Well, I think it was back around 2011, 2012.
Okay.
So I had always wanted to be a writer, and I figured I would be writing novels or narrative fiction. So that's how I got my start. And then, of course, I knew I couldn't just start as a writer right out of the gate. So I figured I needed a day job, a career to fall back on. So I went to undergraduate, on to grad school, got a degree in psychology, and I became a mental health counselor.
Oh, cool.
So I spent some time getting established in my career until I got to a point where I was comfortable enough. I had achieved the goals I wanted, and had a relatively stable career, and I started to pivot back to the arts and got back into writing, and I've always been really visual, and so I dabbled a bit with scripts for comic books or graphic novels.
Oh, cool.
So they would be, gritty, adult, not
Right.
like kid,
Right.
not meant for a child audience. So I started
More
to write
of a
in
horror genre
Absolutely.
for comic books?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, horror genre. So it wasn't superheroes. It was like, the weird tales kind of fiction.
Right.
And as I looked to market that, I realized there was a lot of similarities between the format for that type of a script and screenplays.
You got storyboards.
Yeah, exactly. It's like storyboards. And so around that time, I got involved in a theater company. I was working backstage, building sets, and doing set changes and things for this theater company.
Oh.
And I knew someone from the company who knew a local indie filmmaker. And so I reached out and asked her. The only filmmaker I knew at the time, and I said, "Do you ever accept anyone else's scripts?" And she said, "Okay, write me a 5 to 7 page script we'll put on a short horror film." And that was my intro into it, and I was on set during it, and I ended up writing 2 scripts with that filmmaker. And then I thought, well, I could do this. I could build my own crew. I could run things the way I want to do it. And so around, I think it was 2012, I incorporated Frank Harrer, and then I was off and running.
Wow. That's pretty cool. So that would cover my next projects, my next question about working with other people's projects.
Mm-hmm.
So you started off working with someone else, kind of to get a feel for the industry and everything, and you caught the bug?
I did, yeah, yeah, and I realized that there was a lot of infrastructure locally, so
Yes.
I could easily build a crew. Like I started off with my crew being from the theater company, so they're used to putting on productions, theater productions.
Right.
But there were a lot of transferable skills, and I thought, as the more as I networked, the more I realized I could find the infrastructure I needed, people that had experience in production assistants or script supervisors or, the camera department. I just, I
Right.
built my crew from there.
Cool. So do you go to a lot of the networking things
I
in
try.
the area when
I
you
try.
are not crazy,
Yeah.
crazy busy?
Yeah, I think it's something that's valuable, especially for people who are starting off, because it's a way for them to network and get, any contacts you make there, you now become friends with their contacts, and exponentially it goes out from there.
It grows, especially in this area.
It does. So yeah, I try to go when I can, and every now and then, I'll still meet new people.
Yeah.
And I just met a composer not too long ago, and I've worked with him on some things, and
Cool.
and so I still get benefit from going there, even though now at this point it's mostly faces I know,
Right.
but every now and then there are some
It's mostly
new
rubbing
people to meet.
shoulders.
Yeah, and it's a way to socialize and just get out and have fun.
Definitely. So I know that you write, direct, and produce.
Mhm.
What other things do you do in the filmmaking process?
Well, in indie film, as you know, we all wear many hats
Yes.
out of necessity.
Yes.
So, as much as I don't like producing, it's something I learned how to do in order to
Produce.
in order to produce it, in order to make the film I wanted and have control over it.
Right.
So, but a lot of other things actually, not so much on the technical end. I'm more on the artistic side of things and the creating. I've dabbled in acting a little bit, although I'm not enough to call myself seriously an actor and not laugh about it. But I do special effects makeup, but again, only to a certain point.
Right.
So
So if there's anything major, you call in
yeah,
the experts.
I've got a team now. Yeah, I have
Cool.
a team I'll work with, but I mean, I won't do head sculpting or face casting or any,
Just
anything
like a
really
little-
serious.
some cuts here and there.
Yeah,
Cool. Cool. So of all these different things, what is your favorite hat to wear? Would it be the writing part?
yes.
Yeah.
Definitely, writing. I enjoy directing. I enjoy casting.
Yeah?
Yeah, mostly pre-production and production. Once it gets to post, where it's more the technical things, that's my least favorite aspect.
That's kind of how I am.
Mm.
I just don't have the patience for the editing part.
And I don't know how to edit. I farm that out to someone else. I know what I want. I know how to ask for it, but it's just, again, with my emphasis being on the creative side,
Right.
there's room for creativity in editing and post-production, but it's a lot more technical, and that's where I start to rely upon the expertise of others a little more.
Right. I gotcha. So then, why horror?
That's an interesting question. I've asked myself that many times, because I've tried to write other things that are not horror, and inevitably they make a U-turn and turn dark and come back to horror anyway. So it's inescapable for me. Why do I write horror? I think that for a few reasons. I'm going to answer this in a few different ways.
Okay.
I think that in some ways it's why anyone writes drama, why anyone writes or puts on a comedy. You want to be able to elicit a reaction from your audience.
Right.
And if you can do that, you've succeeded. For me, it's easier to get the horror response, to scare someone or creep them out or build suspense. I think why I'm drawn to horror so much is I've always been imaginative, especially as a child. I was afraid of everything.
Oh.
Couldn't sleep. I'd have to have a parent come in and sit in the
Aw.
room and read while I slept, that sort of thing. But I think that there's a fascination with what scares us.
Yeah.
And so horror is a way...
And it can be so many different things.
It can be, yeah. And it's really individualized. So something that's scary to you might not be scary to me.
Right.
But going into a horror movie is a way to explore
Experience that without physically experiencing
without the
it.
danger. Yeah,
Right.
so there's some level of control. So you as a movie viewer, you go to the theater to watch a horror movie, and there's that implied social contract of, well, I want to be scared by this. And you're going to feel let down if you're not.
Right.
And so you get that thrill, that adrenaline rush. but you also have some level of control over the experience. Because if it becomes too intense, first of all, you know it's just a movie.
Right.
But if it bothers you too much, you can do this,
Yep.
or this,
Or this.
or that, or you can get up and leave.
Right.
So you could go and watch a movie about a guy chasing people through the woods with an axe and feel that fear and be exhilarated and have fun and talk about it afterwards. Wow, that was great. But if you were actually in the woods being chased by a guy with an axe, afterwards
Not so
you wouldn't
great.
be saying how much fun it was. Right? So it's that being able to explore fears and taboos and things in a controlled environment. I think that's what the appeal of horror is.
And does that go back to your psychology?
No, well, the answer does. Without the words to describe why I'm attracted to horror, I've always been attracted to horror.
Yeah, like long before that.
Yeah, and I think there's something, it's not for everyone, but it's something innate in many of us. So when I was little and I was interested in dinosaurs, like so many little kids are,
Right.
it's not the plant eaters or the peaceful
The
ones.
bigger.
It's the teeth and the claws and the
Right.
Tyrannosaurus, right?
Yeah.
So you're interested in what can harm you.
It sounds like it's a face your fears type thing.
Exactly.
As you said, as a child, you were scared of the dark and that kind of stuff. It sounds like a face your fears.
Exactly.
Have you thought of doing a horror comedy? Because you've got this look about you that there's some nasty little prankster jumping around inside doing something that
Yeah.
would just be just sick funny.
And that is the joy I take out of scaring someone. And I did that even when I was younger. I was in the Boy Scouts for a time, and I was the one around the campfire that scared everyone else. And got
Telling
enjoyment out of
scary
it.
stories.
Yeah. But when I tell the stories, I don't like to cut them with comedy, because horror and comedy are very similar in their form, because you build tension and then there's a catharsis, which is your release. So you either build that tension and then the catharsis is a laugh, or it's the scare. And if you laugh, if you instill laughter, you distill the scare and it's not as effective. So horror comedies, I think, walk a really fine line, and it's hard to do well. And I tend to I'll put a tiny speck of humor here or there, but I tend to be really gritty and really serious in my horror. And then I'm laughing on the sidelines when I see people reacting. But
That's like a lot of the horror comedies are really more comedies.
yeah, with horror elements.
Yeah,
Exactly.
like some of the bigger ones that I'm thinking of. You know what I'm talking about, though.
Zombieland. Zombieland is a great comedy.
Right, but
With
it's not
horror
really, it's not
elements.
scary.
No.
It's just funny.
Yeah.
So, do you present all of your films to festivals?
Yes. So the short films, I've only done short films up until now. And they've ranged from about 5 minutes for the really, really short ones to about 45 minutes. So technically it's still a short, but
Right.
yeah, all of those are sent to festivals and or horror conventions. They tend to play well for a niche audience like that.
Right.
And
I
always
know there's
do.
a lot of horror.
There is, especially in
Conventions.
this area too.
Yeah.
But I always do local premieres as well.
Cool.
And then I'll send it off to, wherever I can find venues for them.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of horror specific festivals, aren't there?
There are, yeah. And that's the type of audience I want to tap into, are people that are, because people who like horror are serious about it, and they're
Yeah.
They want more. They're consumers, and
They're
they
just,
want to hear
Give
a
me
new
more,
story.
give me more.
Yeah,
They're like zombies for brains. I'm hungry for it.
exactly.
Okay, so recently released was An Ambitious Man with my friend Mike Sutton, who
Yes.
is in my class. We go to class together, and we've known each other for a few years. How was it received?
Very well.
It looked really fantastic.
Thank you.
I have not had an opportunity to see it yet, so hopefully
I'll make sure you see it then. Yeah, no, it was received really well. That's always, at this point, I've put many films out in front of people, and there's always that fear when you do it. Are they going to see what I wanted them to see? Are they going to laugh in the scary places, which that's not what you want? Are they going to react appropriately?
Right.
And they did. And it was, I'm told that was my best film to date, so
Wow.
I was pretty pleased with it overall.
Awesome. Fantastic. Yeah, and Mike certainly has that air.
Mike was amazing to work with,
Yes.
and he
Love
was
working with
perfect
Mike.
for the role. And yeah.
Yes. Just seeing the little clips that I've seen, So can you tell us a little about the process in making the film?
In making Ambitious Man. Oh well, I could talk for probably an hour. I'll keep it. I'll edit down here, but started with just an idea. Really, I didn't intend to write that as a film, but much like an actor who does exercises to stay sharp, I do writing exercises. So I'm always writing. About 99% of it never makes it into anything. It's just to give myself
Keep sharp.
experience. Yeah. So I'll play around with different characters or ideas, and so it really started as a writing exercise. I wrote a scene with no intention of it going anywhere, and it turned out to be the opening scene for the film.
Oh, wow.
And when I had finished, I read what I'd written in that half of an evening, and I thought, wow, so who is this guy, Mike Sutton's character, the man? I was like, who is this man? What's his motivation? What's he asking for? What obstacles is he facing? What's his history? And the more questions I started to ask, the more I realized there's an interesting story here, and kind of developed it out from there.
Cool. So how long would it take? First of all, how long was the film?
Film was about 20 minutes.
Okay. So we're talking 25-ish pages
It was something, well, my pages, so it's usually about a minute
a page, right?
page.
So
in
usually,
film,
so it's usually like a minute per page or a little less. I'm thinking, no, it's a little more. Ours tend to be a little bit more.
I tend to be on the wordier side when I write, so my, one page of mine might be a little bit longer because it's dialogue heavy, or
Right.
Or maybe there's a lot of descriptions. And
So how long does the writing process for a 20-minute film take?
it depends. Ambitious Man, after that initial session, I think I wrote maybe 2 more sit-down sessions for a couple hours at a time, and I had a rough draft.
Wow.
And then it's just a question of going through and revising it. Because if you look at it, it equates to about 4 or 5 scenes, and I tend to write a scene at a time.
Okay.
No matter how long they are, I could sit and write a long scene, and so yeah, probably for Ambitious Man was probably about a week of work.
Right. And then you decide that you're going to produce it.
Yes.
And what happens then?
Then it's the process of figuring out who I want as the cast, and who I want to test for roles for the cast, filling out my crew, and of course I have favorites that I've worked with from the beginning. I've got solid people in the crew that I rely on, and we work well together. And then of course there are other roles that I fill out as I go, and so picking locations, figuring out what to budget. With Ambitious Man, we had it was the film where I've used the most practical makeup effects. So one of my first calls was to Sick and Twisted FX.
Mm-hmm.
That's run by Tom Smith and
Yeah,
Matt Stroger.
We've talked about him on the show a few times now.
Those are my go-to guys when I want some real serious monster
He's
effects.
really good.
So he was in one of my first calls, and I said, "This is what I want." I had to draw up some designs and some descriptions, and we talked budget, and I ended up. Tom is a co-executive producer on the film.
Oh, okay.
So Tom and Sean
Night.
Sean McKnight from Cinema Alliance. Thank you. I'm blanking on that.
I don't know even know how I know so many people sometimes. Like
It's hard to keep everyone's name straight.
Yeah, it is. That one just popped in there somehow. So, who aside from Mike do you have in the film cast?
So I have Abby Foster.
Okay.
She and Mike play the largest roles opposite each other. Every film I do, actually for the last 3 films now, they've been union films. I do SAG-AFTRA films, and so I always give 1 or 2 roles to a union actor. And so Keith Moyer he's a union actor. He took one of the roles, and Dax Richardson.
Okay.
And then I had some voiceover work with Jenny Miller and Melissa O'Donnell.
Oh, I know D. I just met Dax too in class last week. I think Mike brought him into class.
Yeah, Dax is amazing. Dax is one of the leads in The City in the Glass.
Cool.
So his role in An Ambitious Man, he didn't speak. it was more of a performing role with no dialogue,
Oh, okay.
and he was amazing and creepy and wonderful to work with.
Awesome.
But I brought him back for The City in the Glass, and I gave him some great monologues and a really juicy part. So we got
Cool.
to see him as an actor, bring his A game.
Right. Cool. Now, how about the crew for An Ambitious Man? Who does? I assume that you wrote, directed, and produced.
Yes.
Who is your DP? Who does sound?
The DP is almost exclusively, I've worked with David Kapler as director of photography.
I've worked with David.
David has been there since the beginning. When I first made my first film, I didn't even know what I was looking for and what I needed, and he came on board, he read the script, he met me, and he said, yeah, let's make it, and I learned a ton from him. And we work very well, so we've been working together ever since, and we know how to communicate well with each other, and I give him the latitude that he needs to say, oh, hey, why don't we do this, why don't we do that, and so we know how to work pretty well for the picture and communicate as far as what we need, what he needs from me. So Dave was the director of photography. Sean McKnight and Thomas Smith, they were co-executive producers. Sean edited the film. And of course Tom did, and his partner Matt did the special effects. Sound was Joey DeFeo. So
Okay.
I found Joey through mutual contacts, and I was looking for a good sound guy because sound's really important.
Yeah.
And so Joey was my guy for this film, and ever since then he started to get more work around the area from people I know because I'll recommend him to anyone.
Right.
And I brought him back for another project I just did, and so once you find a good sound guy, they're like gold. So
Yeah.
you want to hold on to them.
Yeah. How about lighting?
Dave Kapler.
Oh, Dave did lighting too.
He's a master at lighting. Yeah.
Really? Cool.
Yep.
That's good to know. So, do you end up doing fundraising?
No.
Nope, you just all self-funded?
Yeah. No. I initially, my very first film, I did crowdfunding, and so the first film was 40-some minutes, and I'm filming on. It was self-funding, and I was going to make the film no matter what, but I did crowdfunding to recoup what I could, and I
Right.
raised over $3,000 for the first film.
That's pretty good, especially around here, because it's just getting
Yeah.
kind of beat up.
Well,
Because everybody uses it and everybody wants help and
yeah.
not enough people to help.
That's the thing. It was new, and so for a lot of my contacts, a lot of my friends, this was a new venture for me, and that was their way of supporting me.
Right.
Then by the time I did my second film, Dig, I went back to the crowdfunding, and again, I'm filming regardless, and I just used the crowdfunding to recoup, and didn't do quite as well because you keep going back to the same well, and
Right.
you get limited returns. So after that, I got a few $100s, which help offset some costs, but
Right.
after that, I decided, well, I'm not gonna panhandle for money anymore. People know me, and I'm going to just self-fund, and if I hold a premiere and maybe I make a little bit, I can recoup some of the costs, but it's really, the way I see it is short films they're not money makers, they're resume builders.
Right.
And so it's a way to raise your profile and market yourself, and so it's money well invested.
True. That is true. So, have you found, or are you looking for distribution for any of your short films?
Not for short films,
No.
with one caveat. I'll explain that in a second. Now, short films, there really isn't a market for that, for distribution, unless you have, maybe if you have like a name actor in it or something that's going to help sell.
Right.
But again, it's really just used to kind of get the word out there and to have a body of work. So, when I make a feature, if I have a bigger production company backing me or funding production,
You can
I
have
can
some
show them and
stuff
say,
to
hey,
show.
here's what I've done. Right.
Right.
Now, that being said, I just wrapped production on a short film with Sean McKnight from Cinema Alliance. It's a script that I wrote called A Breath Away. And we are going to try and market that short film, but it's actually intended for virtual reality users. So people that have
Oh.
like PlayStation, those VR units or
Yeah,
the
I have one.
Oculus. Okay. Okay. So
My brother just gave me one.
they're cool.
They're
really
very cool.
We thought there's not a lot of content for these, and there's a streaming platform, and it seems like while this technology is new, let's jump in.
Right.
And so we've
That's
got
a great idea. I wouldn't even know how to go about putting that together.
Yeah, well, it requires a different way of writing. So when I wrote for a virtual reality script, I have to think about it entirely differently, and the way we shoot it is different. Because you
Right.
have a little camera that films 360 degrees, so you don't have a director of photography. We either have the cameras mounted on a helmet on the actor, so you get their point of view, or we put it on a tripod, and then you get the user who puts on this virtual reality unit can look all around the room of where we filmed, because you look up, there's the ceiling, look down, there's the floor, you see everything.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of crazy. If you haven't tried one of those VR units, try one. Virtual reality, they're blow your mind. Did you want to say something? Or has something? Okay. You looked interested in something specific.
No, he's talking 360 cameras.
So he's like, hello?
And I've seen a few, and I was thinking about it, and it just, all you have is the actors. And I don't know how it works, because you can only have the actors, you can't have director, you can't have anybody. Because,
In the vicinity.
Because you'll
They'll
be seen.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well, so Sean and I co-directed the film, and you pretty much have to watch from Video Village. You have your remote camera, or your remote viewing screen, and you can see what's happening in the room. So we actually shot in an embalming room in a funeral home.
Oh, wow.
And but of course doors are closed and we're nowhere in the vicinity. Same thing with the sound guy. We've got our actors mic'd up with lav mics, and he's hidden some other microphones in the room, and so he's monitoring sound from outside of where we're filming. And
Right.
so it's a whole different
Major
process.
setup.
But it was interesting to do that for the first time.
That's pretty cool.
And we had so Brian Anthony Wilson. I don't know if you are familiar with him.
No, I don't think I've met Brian.
He's a local actor, but he's done some big things. So he was on HBO's The Wire. He was in The Postman with Kevin Costner, and a number of other. He's got a pretty decent resume. So this, of course, was a SAG-AFTRA project, and we brought him on as the lead. And so our goal, and your question originally was marketing to distributors. So our goal is to market this to the streaming platform, and we figured, Brian's a fine actor, and with his credentials, maybe that'll help market this to
Right.
that platform. So we'll see if we get distribution for this virtual reality film experience.
Good luck with that. I will check it out definitely if
Thank you.
if so.
Thank you.
So what do you have any advice for first time filmmakers?
don't do it.
Wow, for first-time filmmakers, well, I didn't go to film school. So, and I've seen a lot of people who have. Some are good and know what they're doing, and some, I think they probably wasted their money and their time.
It happens.
I think the best way to learn, at least for me, has been experientially being on the set and learning from being on originally another person's set, and then having my own, and of course that's a learning
experience all in itself.
It is. And I still, I'll still work on other people's sets, and sometimes just to do makeup or volunteer or just observe, or, there's always something new to learn. So ask a lot of questions, be flexible.
Yeah, definitely be
There
flexible.
will always be problems, right?
Yeah,
And
be prepared to be flexible.
know how to think on the fly. When you have reliable people, go with those people. Network as much as you can. And I think, with filmmakers, there's always that fear when you first put your film out there to someone that, this is my baby and it's going to be judged now and critiqued, and
Right.
it's kind of a scary feeling at first. I mean, I've had enough of those now where I'm used to it, but I think there's also a tendency for people to put a wall up and just say, to be overly confident and just say, I don't care what people think, that this is the best.
This is good, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, there are people like that.
So, you want to be confident enough to put it out there, but not have that shield of ego to block all the critique from coming in, because
You're not
people's
gonna learn without
critique is
critique.
valid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And some people, whether they like something or not in a film, they have something valuable to say. And if you're not really listening and in tune to it, you're not going to improve.
Right. Right. Definitely. So what is on the horizon for Frank Harr? The City in the Glass is wrapping?
City in
Well,
the Glass
it's
is wrapped.
and now it's in post-production. What
Yeah.
What else is going on?
Well, I'm hoping to have City in the Glass ready to premiere locally in October. I wanted to do around Halloween and then,
Cool.
send it off to festivals. The virtual reality film, we filmed that in a day, so that
Oh, wow.
is now in post-production as well.
Cool.
I'm always doing photo shoots in between films, so I do horror-themed photo shoots.
Oh, cool.
And that's just to kind of stay sharp, play with new looks, new lighting, new monster effects, new ideas, concepts. I'm always writing. I've written and developed about probably 4 feature-length scripts at this point,
Oh, wow.
and I'm not self-funding those, so of course I want to do them right with the right budget, so
Right.
I'm shopping those around to bigger production companies.
Cool.
So I'm always working on something, and other people have hit me up for collaborations, and I don't really, if I have free time, then I sit there thinking, well, I should be doing something. Why are you wasting your time? So
Yes, I hear that. So does he. He's like, I need to film something. Come on, let's film something. Which we'll be doing next week. So
very nice, very nice.
Philly Indie will probably be coming live from set instead of this set.
Hmm.
Except wherever we're filming from, I don't even know yet because I'm still working on location. So, do you have any specific plans for your next filming at this point?
I do have another short film that I've got planned, and that'll probably be the next thing I do. It's called The Root, and that's about a 15-minute supernatural horror short
Cool.
film, and I won't tell you any more after that.
Neat. Do you usually film around here?
Yes. Yeah, so I typically film in the Philadelphia area, New Jersey, within maybe a 50-mile radius of Philadelphia.
Awesome. Last question.
Mhm.
How do you put out casting calls, or do you usually use people that you already know?
I like to avoid casting calls. I started off doing that, and I found it to have diminishing returns. I spent a lot of time wasted, and
But no.
yeah, and it's
Casting calls it drives me a little crazy.
yeah. So I will do. Typically when I find people I like to work with, I will reuse them again in different roles. I do like to cast people against type. So someone like Mike Sutton, who's
The nicest guy in the world.
nicest guy in the world. Of course, I give him a dark and gritty role, and to the point where he told me he was bothered for about a week afterwards until he finally shook
He
it
was
off.
like grumpy.
Yeah.
That explains why he wasn't like that in class.
But now I'll avoid the big cattle call casting things. I tend to have a more targeted approach. So there's a network of people that I trust, other filmmakers or people in the industry, and if I'm curious about someone because I think they look right for a role, or a small group, I might bring in a small group of people and test them for the role, but they're usually hand selected. But I'll also ask the people that I trust and say, well, what have been your experiences with this person, or what do you think? Or a lot of times as far as actors go, I can see their reels, or I can see something that they've been in, and I can recognize if there's some talent there, what they might be right for certain roles or not. So
That's pretty
So
cool.
I'd like to be more targeted in casting.
It's easier.
Do you find yourself viewing your cast whilst writing?
Sometimes.
And do you write towards the actor instead of bringing the actor towards your writing?
Sometimes, yes. Yeah, so I didn't write An Ambitious Man for Mike Sutton, but somewhere along the writing process, when I realized now I'm writing a short film, I started to think, before I even finished the first draft of the script, who could play this locally? And I didn't know Mike that well. I'd met him once or twice, but just based on his look, I wrote to him. Like I wrote him in that role, and then of course tried him out for the part, and he fit. For The City in the Glass, one of the main roles I wrote for Dax, specifically Dax Richardson, and hoping that he would read the script and want to play it, and of course he did. But had he not, I could have found someone else that might have fit that role. But yeah, there are times where I do write with someone specific in mind, and maybe that person doesn't work out in the role in the end, but usually they do.
I've got another question. Are you shooting in 1080, 2K, 4K, 5K?
And that's where I give the disclaimer that I'm on the artistic side, and the technical stuff goes right over my head. So I'm going to want to say that Dave Kapler has been shooting with it is a Canon.
It's a C3 or 500, I think.
I think it's a C3, if I believe. But that means nothing to me. It's all gobbledygook. So.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a cameraman.
Yeah.
And a sound guy.
I'm not a sound guy, damn it. I'm a builder of things. Have you thought about doing, because of your genre, have you thought about doing a 3D?
No. The 3D films I've seen have been mostly cheesy.
It's hard to really capture well.
It is. I mean, I'm sure. So, I saw what was the last Star Wars film? Not Rogue One, but the Star Wars episode. What are they on? 7?
I don't even know.
They released that in 3D, and I saw that in the theater, and that was interesting. But for the most part, you know, that's Disney, and they have a lot of money, and they could pull off something interesting like that, but and do it well. But for the most part, the 3D effects in horror, I think, are cheesy, and they distract from the actual story.
I
Just
only
like-
ask it because I'm colorblind and I can't see 3D.
Oh, okay.
So it drives me
Interesting.
nuts. Everyone else is going,
Oh, cool.
and I'm going,
What?
wow, that's some crappy filming that's got lines all over the damn place.
Yeah, no, I think 3D is just a gimmick that is kind of a distraction at best. And
The new cameras are making it look really, really good. So for, you know,
Last movie I saw in 3D was one of the kids' movies when I brought the boys.
but for horror, it would be awesome.
If you could see it.
I'll leave then. Fine. If I had hair, I'd shake it.
Anything else that you want to talk about?
No, I think that pretty much covered it. I mean, I have my website you mentioned is frankhorror.com.
Also on Facebook.
I've got Facebook pages for The City in the Glass and Ambitious Man. I'm sure I'll be dropping updates on when I have screenings or new projects going on and new
Awesome.
photo shoots being put up on the website. And,
Here, write your Facebook.
oh,
You know your
so
Facebook.
well, there is a
Frank, do you post all your stuff on Frank Horror?
Yeah, there's a Frank Horror Facebook page. If you just search by that, I don't know what
You
the
don't know if
exact
what it
URL is offhand.
All right, just go to www.frankhorror.com and you'll find it there. All right?
Yep. Thank you.
All right. So this will wrap up the interview with Frank Juchniewicz, a.k.a. Frank Horror. Always a pleasure to have you on. Another cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Now, what are you going to do? Yep. Go on. Shoot. Go film. Thanks for coming. Join us next week with Philly Indy with Melissa Chadwick. Now go film something. Bye.